All right, ready?
You're on.
Put me on, all right?
Yeah, go on. Or you want to stand, or you want to? We're live.
Oh, okay, great.
We're live and recording.
Okay, so thank you everyone for coming. This is part 4 of our relationship series through the Sephardic Kehillah Center. Thanks to Rabbi Kadosh, as always, for providing us with incredible insight into this important topic for all of us, as everyone in this room is fairly new in their relationship and in their marriage. So find it really, really helpful as we navigate the early years. And we want to say a very big Chazak Baruch and thank you to Meir and Galit for hosting this week. And our topic this week will be Shalom Bayit. And we look forward to your insights, Rabbi. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac, and thank you, Meir and Galit, and everybody that's here. It's wonderful to be back on a Tuesday evening. The weather is starting to get warmer. Maybe that's the simcha. Misha nichnas adar marvim besimcha. Maybe that's the simcha that we feel as Canadians, who just got hit with tariffs. Maybe the little bit of simcha over there. Actually, speaking of tariffs, plugging in that, I just also posted a little halachic clip for whether or not we are we obligated or encouraged to buy local now that some tariffs have hit our country. Go check that out later on YouTube. Okay. Yeah, Baruch Hashem. We're getting close. We're getting close to Purim. We're getting close to Pesach, the ultimate Geulah, the time of total simcha, more simcha than Purim. I know for many people in this table, maybe it's not so sameach because you got to work and you got to clean and you got to cook and you got to prepare. But no question that is the ultimate Geulah. And of course, we still have in mind and pray for those in Eretz Yisrael, those the hostages that are still in captivity. Hashem should bring them home soon, that all of the chayalim, all of the soldiers that are fighting on the front lines be protected and be spared from any form of infliction or injury. And Hashem should protect all of Klal Yisrael and get rid of all of our enemies, and we'll be zochet to see them wiped out. Timched Zecher Amalek. This is this week's parasha. We have a commandment to erase the memory of Amalek, although we don't know exactly who Amalek is today, and that's why we can't actually go and kill someone, even if he has a T-shirt wearing Amalek, saying Amalek on it. But nevertheless, we have a pretty good idea who is Amalek. Mm-hmm. Those are the people that want our destruction, and they seek our destruction day in and day out. And we can argue that erasing, that eliminating is taking place even as we speak, and it'll be the day where all the enemies will be erased, and we'll be able to live in bliss and tranquility and happiness. All Am Yisrael b'yachad. Amen. Amen. We are, like Isaac said, in part 4 of this series. The first 3 we spoke in depth about intimacy. Today, as per request by you guys, to speak about Shalom Bayit. Shalom Bayit, loosely translated as peace in the home. Now, one might argue and say that what kind of Torah connection is there to Shalom Bayit? It seems to be standard, or not standard, or expected that when a husband and wife, build a home, that home is a home of peace. That's what we want. And to go around flaunting the fact that Jewish people have Shalom Bayit, maybe a Gentile will hear, well, what do you mean? Well, we don't have Shalom Bayit? Of course, they also seek to have peace in the home. So how is it a Jewish thing, or more importantly, are there sources in the Torah to such a thing, to this idea of Shalom Bayit? So it's not a Jewish thing. In fact, you can go on Amazon. Today's class is actually going to be based on a book by John Gottman that is one of the best sellers on Amazon. You can look at it. It's called The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. Okay? That's what the book is. That's what we're going to be basing our shiur on. And we're going to go through each one of those 7 principles and find Torah connections to them. Sometimes I'll read from a text so you have a good idea of what's going on. Sometimes the text is very profound and what can I say, academic, but that's okay because we have a good group of people here that can think and take it in. There's going to be a lot of sources that I'm going to bring out today, and that's okay. I don't expect anybody here, including myself, to remember all of them when we walk out of those doors. But nevertheless, Nevertheless, we can take with us 1, 2, 3 things that you remember. And you know what? I really like that idea. Whether it's one of the principles, a couple of the principles, and all the Torah that comes with it. And again, I have no connection to Mr. Gottman, but if you want to buy his book, you can go buy his book. I think it was on sale on Amazon when I looked it up, about 30% off. You can have a read. So a lot of these principles, again, are very much rich in Torah materials, and some don't have many Torah materials to them. So let's start with this. How do the Chachamim, how do the sages look at Shalom Bayit, or the importance of Shalom Bayit? So we start with a Gemara in Masechet Shabbat. There the Gemara speaks about if a person has only enough money to purchase ner beto v'ner Chanukah, meaning he has enough money for one candle, either a candle for his home, okay, which is usually in reference to Shabbat, the candle for Shabbat, or for a candle for Chanukah. The Gemara says ner beto adif, the Shabbat candle that's going to be lit in his home is more important than to buy the Chanukah candle. And what's the reason why the Gemara says so? Mishum shalom beto, because of Shalom Bayit. Shalom Bayit. Also, if you have ner beto v'kiddush hayom, if you have enough money, just a little bit of money to buy Shabbat candle or kiddush, wine for kiddush, what should you do? Ner beto adif. Again, buy. If you only have enough money, buy the candle. Why? Mishum shalom beto. In the old days, there was no electricity. Okay, and the last thing we wanted was no light in the home, so that one of the members of the household will trip and fall and hurt themselves and start yelling at their spouse. You know, what's this? You don't make enough money. I can't afford this. I can't afford candles. I can't. So if you have enough money to buy one or the other, then says the Gemara, buy the candle because of Shalom Bayit. The Midrash in Vayikra Rabbah talks about the mitzvah of sotah. Sotah is the woman who was accused of being unfaithful with her husband, and she was warned. She was seen with another man, and she was warned not to go again with that other man. And she went. She went with the other man, and now the husband brings her to the Beit HaMikdash. This is a mitzvah of sotah. Some of you might be familiar with it. And this woman maintains her innocence. She says, I didn't do anything. Yeah, I was with him, but I was secluded with him, but I did nothing. Nothing happened. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Nothing happened. Okay, they bring to the Beit HaMikdash, and she is given to drink a bitter water, me hamarim hamarerim, a water that contains the name of Hashem diluted and erased in that water. So they take the name of God, Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, and they, on the bottom of parchment, they dip it into the water, and the name gets erased. The ink gets dissolved in the water. And she drinks this water. And says the Midrash, Gadol Shalom, so great is peace. Sheshem HaGadol Nichtav Biktusha, that the great name of God, the holiest name of God, Yud Kei Vav Kei, is written with holiness on that parchment. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yimache B'mayim, let my name be erased. Why? Kedei La'atil Shalom Ben Isha Ishto, so that there maintain peace between man and his wife. This man doesn't trust his wife right now. And the only way that's going to prove her innocence is if she drinks this water and nothing happens to her. If she's not innocent, she drinks the water and she dies. But, which technically also could bring some closure and some peace. Okay, but if she is indeed innocent, she drinks the water and she's free to go. In fact, the water acts as some sort of bracha, segula, for her to have children. And if she already had children, that any future children would be, prominent children. So we see Hashem is willing to erase his name for the sake of shalom. How careful are we nowadays not to, God forbid, throw God's name away, right? Every little paper you have, a geniza, I got to find, I got to bury it, all this. We're so worried about it, writing Hashem's name as hey and not his full name. You see everything. Everybody's trying to do these things because you don't want to be left with all these papers and books that you don't know what to do with about it, and you have to put them in Shemot and geniza. And God's here saying, yeah, sure, erase my name. Erase it. On a parchment. It's like taking a piece of Sefer Torah and erasing it. Why? For the sake of Shalom Bayit. The Maharal says over here, it's not arbitrary that God's name just thrown in the water. Hashem's name in itself embodies peace. His name is Shalom. That's why Many chachamim say you cannot say the word shalom in the bathroom. Right? So here it's not a problem because we don't maybe greet each other with shalom. But in Israel, you greet each other. You don't say hi. Say shalom, manishma. Shalom. If you're in the bathroom, you can't respond shalom because it's one of the names of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. All right. So it's therefore it's not to say that God is allowing His name to be erased. It's telling you that it's not a desecration to the name for the sake of peace. Says the Avot Rabbi Natan. He says something amazing. He says, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, Kol hamesim shalom betoch beto. Anybody who ensures that there's peace in his house, Ma'aleh alav hakatuv keilu mesim shalom beYisrael al kol echad ve'echad. It's as if he brought peace to the entire nation. And God forbid the opposite. Kol hametil kin'ah v'tachrut betoch beto. Ma'aleh alav hakatuv keilu matil kin'ah v'tachrut beYisrael lefi shekol echad ve'echad melech betoch beto. And if God forbid someone brings competition and jealousy into his house, then it's tantamount to bringing competition and jealousy to the entire nation. Why? And there's a Purim reference over here. Because every man wants to be ruler of his domain. Every man wants to take control. And if God forbid, I disagree with you or you're stepping over my line, okay, I'm going to make sure that your life is miserable, God forbid. And then it affects everybody around. And the pasuk in Megillat Esther says that one of Haman's decrees was liot kol ish sorer bebeto. He wanted to make sure that the man was in total control, and not because look what happened when the man was on total control. Vashti came and started dictating things, and look, this is what we want, says Haman. We want women to have a say, right? We can't have women have a say, so we got to have the men the sorer bebeto, like rulership, a very strong language. That's not our way. That's not the way we think. Okay, backfired on him, in fact. Okay, so anyway, so these are some of the sources where Shalom Bayit is found in amongst the statements of a Chazal. So let's look at these 7 principles. I don't expect you to know them. I'm reading them from my notes. Actually, my notes are based on a shiur by Rabbi Joshua Flug, who's a big Rav in the United States. So his first principle based on this book is called enhance your love maps. It's the first principle. So basically here, the author stresses the importance of each spouse taking interest in the other spouse's life. I'll repeat that. Enhancing your love maps, taking interest in the other person's life. So what does that include? Includes knowing who their friends are. It includes knowing what their hobbies are. What do they like to do? What do they enjoy doing? Details about their childhood. These are something you normally find out when you start dating or at the early stages of marriage, when you find out certain things about your wife or your girlfriend that you may not have known when they were small. Favorite foods, vacation spots. Okay? When you enhance this, then I'm not going to take my wife to London, England, when she doesn't care for London, England. She likes beach resorts. And therefore, if I want to make her happy, so I'm going to bring her to a destination that she enjoys. What's going on at work? That's another thing. What's going on at work? Are you asking your wife about how her day is? Or how, did it go well? Did it not go well? Now, you always have to be careful with this question. I'll tell you why. Halachically, you have to be careful because if something didn't go right at work, then you could be putting a stumbling block in front of your wife or your husband, if it's the other way around, by them speaking Lashon Hara. So that question is a dangerous question. I already have a question?
But I thought with your spouse, it's not technically Lashon Hara.
No. If something happened at work that that you say somebody was not nice to me at work, but your husband has no idea who that person is, and you don't reveal who that person is, then of course that is fine, and your husband is there to support you and comfort you. That's okay. But I'm just saying you need to be careful with those type of questions. Okay, that it could lead to So preface the question by saying, how was work? If it was bad, don't give me too much information. Just I want to hear in general. All right. What are your spouse's goals? What are your spouse's aspirations? What is a constant concern from your better half? That that either takes up a big part of their day or is on their mind. There's a very well-known Mishnah in Pirkei Avot that says, Al tarbeh sicha im ha'isha. Don't have too much conversation with a woman. And you would think if the Mishnah ended there, okay, kind of makes sense. The rabbis are telling us that a guy shouldn't go be talking to women. But then the Tana, the rabbi says, by the way, when I said this statement, be'ishto amru, I'm talking about his wife. Don't have too much conversation with your wife. Kal vachomer be'eshet chavero. All the more so when it comes to the wife of somebody else. So what's going on over here? It's a very hard Mishnah to understand. Like, why would the Tana, why would the rabbi give us this piece? Well, I can't talk to my wife. I can't have, that's just not what I was taught. As when I took my classes with my rabbi, no one told me not to speak to my wife. So the Meiri, who's one of the commentators on the Mishnah, he says that this Mishnah is not talking about obviously matters that are important to marriage. Anything that is important to marriage, whether it's your children, your future children, or finances, or the house, anything that really was going to build your marriage, those are conversations you need to have. The message is that you have to have a balance, not to expand into trivial matters that kind of don't make sense. And often conversations do lead to that. Once you start talking about, again, Lashon Hara, okay, you start talking about other people or other communities or this house that really don't have to do with you and your life and the building of your home, then those are things you need to avoid. Matters of significance don't lead to those distractions, such as the trivial matters. So that's a very important piece, is enhancing your love maps, understanding what your wife and your husband love, what's going on at work, what are their goals, what are the aspirations, but at the same time balancing, knowing where the conversation needs to kind of pause here. You know what? Maybe this is not a topic that we should be discussing. It's not kind of none of our business. So let's focus on something more practical and more important. That's the first principle. The second principle is the principle of nurturing the fondness and the admiration for your spouse. Of course, the idea that love and admiration is the thing we spoke about in our first three classes is a very important component to a happy, successful marriage. A person needs to look at their marriage and always be able to put a positive spin on their marriage, even if their marriage is at a little bit of a blip. Even when things may not going the way you wanted to at this point, that it's important to always try to find something positive. According to the author, that if a person looks back at their early stages of the relationship, the dating stage, the engagement stage, and the early marriage, if they constantly recall those parts with fondness and a positive manner, that just shows that things are going well. Meaning, if they're always reminiscing to all those good times, that's good. If the couple is looking back and there's always something negative that they're thinking about, that's a predictor that maybe the relationship isn't going in the wrong direction. The Gemara tells us that there are some people who use the words matzah and some use the word motzeh to describe their marriage. Matzah is in past tense and motzeh is in present tense. So what does that mean? There's a pasuk in Mishle that says matzah isha matzah tov. This is actually a verse that we Moroccans have the custom to read under the chuppah right before the reading of the ketubah. We say this pasuk, matzah isha matzah tov. It literally means you found a wife, you found goodness. But the verse that uses present tense, motze ani mar mimavet et haisha, right? I'm finding bitterness from death with my wife. It's a negative statement. So therefore, the Gemara says some people would describe their marriage in the past tense, in the goodness, matzah isha matzah tov, and some people are drowning in a pool of negativity. Look what he says, the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon says, "Lefi pshuto lefi shederech bnei adam." It is the way of people. Keshetov la'adam, when things are going well, en omer tov li ela batchila. They only say, in the beginning was good, but they don't recognize that now it's good. אבל אחר כך, שוב אינו אומר כן. Afterwards, they don't like to reveal that things are good. אבל חס ושלום כשרע לאדם, but when things are bad for a person, אומר תמיד בכל פעם ובכל עת רע לי. All days, things suck, my life sucks, nothing is good. It's always a constant negative. So what the Vilna Gaon is saying is that that this is the same idea for the good marriage. A person looks at the past. Matzah Isha Matzah Tov goes, wow, everything that's happened till this point has been amazing. And automatically now becomes amazing. And your job is to continue that amazing. And Masha Enken is if you're stuck in mud of negativity and you don't want to get out of it because you failed to put a positive spin, well, that's a problem. So always find that fondness and that goodness and that positivity with regards to your spouse. The Gemara Masechet Midah talks about that the whole reason why there's the concept of Nida, the whole reason why ladies go to the mikveh after they menstruate to become pure, says the Gemara, because we want the woman to be pure and special like the day she got married. And that is really the feeling that usually a good marriage, that's what it feels like when the woman comes back after a few days, almost 2 weeks of not being with her husband intimately. She comes back to the mikveh. It's like a newlywed again. It's like a honeymoon. That's the feeling. So Gemara is being very honest here. Okay, so we're trying to increase that admiration and that fondness. The Rambam in the Halacha speaks about the importance of each spouse honoring one another. It's not just a one-way street. Each spouse has to honor one another. In fact, there's a story brought here down by the Meir Chadash, and he says that the importance of giving gifts to one's spouse. So I'll read you the story. He says, "Pa'am avarti b'yom shishi b'shchunat Geula." Once I was walking on the street in Geula in Jerusalem. Upagash oti hamashgiach Meir Chadash. V'sha'al im kaniti kvar prachim leishti. He asked me, "Did you buy flowers for your wife?" Ladies are gonna like this story. He goes, "Did you buy flowers to the wife?" Nidhamti me'ashela. I was like awestruck. V'amarti lo, Baruch Hashem, ani chai tov im ishti. There's flowers. I don't need flowers. I have a good life with my wife. Baruch Hashem, we have a happy marriage. And tzorach b'piyusim. I don't need to appease her with flowers. That was the response. Amar li, he told him, "Matanot ze lo lefayes." Presents and gifts are not to appease. That's not the purpose. Ela le'arich et ha'isha, but to value your wife. All right, and he brings a whole proof from the Gemara. It's to show admiration, right? So I show admiration and fondness and love, by giving a gift. It doesn't have to be just because you're having you got an argument, you got a fight. Okay, here's some flowers. No, that's not what it's about. Okay, so that's the second principle. Third principle is the principle of turn toward each other instead of away. So this means that the spouses have to be partners in each other's lives. So that means you're doing things together and you're not doing them separately. Even mundane matters. Washing the dishes, then it should be both, especially in a house where there's not many other distractions going on. We've got other kids that need to be dealt with, and maybe one deal with the kids. But if not, both wash the dishes, both help clean the house and do it together. I speak for myself here. Okay, I'm going on the record. I speak for myself. I gotta prove on certain things. I'm not a good washing dishes guy. It's just one of these things I don't like doing. All right. Obviously, being there for your spouse, for him or her when they're not feeling well, even when it's difficult. Being emphatic towards your spouse when they come across challenges and obstacles and things that are not going their way, and at the same time celebrate every time they are victorious and they are triumphant. And it's really important to show your spouse that you care, that you care, that they're a part of your life. In fact, there's an idea to this in the pasuk in Kohelet. Kohelet was written by Shlomo HaMelech, and Shlomo HaMelech, his name was Kohelet, in fact. And look what Shlomo HaMelech says: Re'eh chayim im ha'isha asher ahavta. See the life with the woman that you love. Kol yemei chaye hevlecha. All the days of your yemei hevlecha. Hevel is mundane, are things that are important. Hevel avalim, we consider like, but that's the days that you got to keep again. That those mundane days, those days that seem unimportant. Obviously, you're going to love your wife on the day that your child gets married or your grandchild gets married, but die. But what about the normal day, the average Wednesday in the middle of the winter, where everyone just goes to work and comes back, right? Where's the affection? Are you turning towards her, or is that like, you know what? I'll see you on Shabbat. You know what's the communication like? In fact, Rabbeinu Tam says that and I know this is going back to the intimacy a little bit, that the mitzvah of onah, the mitzvah of intimacy, of sexual relations, is to spend time with one's wife, not just necessarily intimacy. And the proof is based on a Gemara that says that a person is not allowed to sleep in the same room as a married couple, even when she's a nida. So you might think, if she's a nida, why can't I sleep in this room? They're not going to do anything, so extra bad, I'm going to go sleep in the room. No, because there's a constant obligation to spend time together and talk to each other and be with each other, even though they can't touch physically. So you can't be there. Sorry, go find a hotel, right? You can. The Vilna Gaon even has an amazing chidush that the Midrash tells us that Batchila, in the beginning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to create Adam and Chava separately, but in the end, Ubasof lo bara ela echad. He created them as one, and he pulled Chava from Adam Harishon. Now, whenever we see a lot of these midrashim where originally God meant to do this, very difficult midrashim to understand because God doesn't change His mind. That kind of implies that He is, imperfect. God forbid, right? So, what does it mean? He asked this question: "Bechi chas v'shalom yes shinui?" God changes His mind. Like what's happening over here? Look what He says. The reason why God created a woman was to be His helper. Was there to assist him. What is the purpose if there are one body? If the whole reason was for them to be separated, you need them separated so they can help each other. So then, why create them as one? You should know that the husband and wife need to have a more concentrated and fierce love more than any other relative, more than your brothers, more than your sisters, more than any other relative. And that's the meaning of mitechila. In the beginning, this is what God wanted. The goal was to create two separate bodies, okay? But it started off as one, so that they know that a husband and wife are constantly seeking that connection and making it stronger. That's the Vilna Gaon. Very deep commentary on this midrash. The last point on this midrash is from Rav Yosef Soloveitchik. Now, this is the Soloveitchiks were geniuses, and they wrote a lot of very profound books on all parts of Judaism. I'm going to read this because I cannot explain it outside. So I'm just going to read what he says. And again, if you want, I can send you the quote later. Look what he says. The cause of marriage is the exasperating and desolate feeling of loneliness. The goal of marriage is the redeeming experience of life in fellowship. While this is the first account of man, of Adam, deals exclusively with the physiological sexual differentiation of male and female and their joint capacity for procreation. The second account, it's the second chapter, completely omitted this aspect of the male-female relationship. Neither the physiological fact of sexual differentiation nor the biological moment of reproduction is mentioned in the second account. The blessing of be fruitful or multiply was imparted to an anonymous male and an unknown female, but not to Adam and Eve. In contrast, the sexual polarity of male and female Zachar u'nekeva, the Bible switches to ish and isha, which is man and woman, and a helpmate opposite him, ezer kenegdo. According to the second account, God was concerned not with the couple's biological motives and goals, with the meeting of male and female for the express purpose of procreation, but rather with the spiritual incompleteness of lonely man and his need for ontological oneness with another individual. Very, very deep. He wrote a whole book on the lonely man of faith. The first Adam, which is Adam Harishon, how he's described in the first chapter of Bereshit, and how man is described in the second chapter. So a very, very powerful point over here by Rav Soloveitchik. The fourth principle, as we move on, we're half an hour in, we still got some time. The fourth principle is to let your partner influence you. Let your partner influence you. Now, in some marriages, one or both spouses are opinionated, not willing to consider the opinion of the other spouse. Now, I will be open and admit that this is usually more of a problem with men. Okay? Women who, even if they might have a harsher startup, they are less likely to influence their husbands. And this principle is telling us that each spouse has to lend their ear and give the other spouse input on decision making in the home and outside of the home, and look for advice. And we find many times in the stories of our Tanakh where this took place, where wives actually having an influence on their husbands. Okay, some for the negative, some for the positive. The first and foremost one was Chava, Eve, who influenced Adam to eat from the tree. Okay, that was not a good one. Okay, in fact, Adam blamed his wife, Aisha, the woman that you gave me. She's the one who told me to eat from the tree. Okay, but then we have a good one. Abraham Avinu listens to his wife Sarah regarding Ishmael. Ishmael was born from Hagar. Ishmael was not a good influence on Yitzchak, on Isaac. So and Abraham didn't want to send Ishmael away. And Sarah says, listen, you got to do it or bad news is going to happen. And Abraham's at a crossroads. God comes to him and says, whatever Sarah tells you to do, you got to listen. And he listened to God and listened to his wife and sent Ishmael away. And that was very good for Yitzchak. The Gemara notices that there were two men in the story of Korach. Korach placed a rebellion against Moshe and Aharon because he felt he was also deserving of some title of leadership and he didn't get it. And the Gemara notices that it was his wife, Eshet Korach, who was the instigator. She was the one pushing him. You're going to let your cousin, take control? What about you? You're also smart. Korach was a genius, very smart, big in Torah study. You don't have a position of authority, leadership. You're going to let him walk all over you? Come on. And that staged a rebellion. There was another man who originally joined Korach. His name was On Ben Pelet. This is a shiur on its own. On Ben Pelet. Okay? He was with Korach. Yeah, let's do this. But On Ben Pelet's wife, the Gemara says about her, quoting a pasuk in Mishlei, Chachmot Nashim Banta Beta. The wisdom of the women build the home. She convinced him the other way. She's like, On Ben Pelet, you need this in your life right now. Come on. He's a good guy. He means well, Moshe. Look what he's done for us already. What are you going to do? We're going to start up a whole revolution. We're in the desert. Come on. And he backed off. And And because of that, his life was saved. Because Korach ended up getting swallowed in the ground with his 250 men. Okay. And Omen Pelet was saved. So yes, they were able to build their life because of the wisdom of the woman who convinced him otherwise. And there's many other examples. The Gemara actually tells us when it's appropriate for a husband to be influenced by the wife and vice versa. In case you're wondering, when should I pay more attention to my wife for her advice? And when should women pay more attention to their husbands for advice? So the Gemara says, Mile de Alma, ordinary matters are in the hands of the husband. But Mile de Beita, matters of the home are in the hands of the wife. Okay, so that's an easy rule. So the wife said, and we see it a lot. My wife tells her husband, listen, you want to do outside the house, you can do, make whatever decision. You want to go for a vacation, but what's in this home, mama rules, right? And that's, and we see that. And there is this sort of authority from the female in the home. That's one thing the Gemara says. Then the Gemara says something else. Mile dishmaya, matters of spirituality, the husband should have the influence. And then mile de alma, physical matters, the wife should have the influence. So that doesn't mean that the wife should not be involved in any spiritual matters, but when it comes to Torah, mitzvot, tzedakah organizations, what lulav we're going to buy, what we're going for Purim, Suda, whatever it is, yes, you need your wife on board, but any matters of spirituality should go through the husband. And mila de alma and everything else, like what type of food we're serving, or clothing, buying clothing for the kids. Mila de alma, worldly matters, that is in the wife. And in fact, there was a story which I always love to say over, but it's too long for now. I'm not going to go through the whole story. But there was a point in history where the Nasi, who was the Gadol Ador, the great of the generation, the president of the generation, had to be replaced. Okay? And they went and approached, after turning away very good candidates. Rabbi Akiva, they turned away. Rabbi Yoshua, they turned away. All for other reasons. They went up to an 18-year-old kid, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Okay? The famous story where, I don't know if you remember, where he didn't even have a beard. Okay? And they went up to him. And he said, would you like to be the president of the community? So imagine, they just took Rabbi Akiva and says, you can't be it. Okay? Because Rabbi Akiva came from lineage of Gerim. So he didn't have Zechut Avot. So they went up to this kid. You're a kid. It was a big tzaddik, 18 years old. You want to be it? You know what his answer was? I got to ask my wife. Literally, that's what he said. I need to ask my wife. And he went and asked his wife. And his wife said, listen, look what they did to the other guy. They made his life miserable. You need that headache, right? You really need that headache? And his answer was, if I can, basically, if I teach this to my students, he says, if you could have a chance to be the head coach of the Maple Leafs for one day, would you not take it? Even though you know you're going to get fired the next day? Every coach gets fired, right? He says, even though they kick me out, but I get to be the Nasi of the community. Why would I pass this up? Right? That was his response. To which she said, yeah, but you don't even look like a rabbi. You're 18 years old. Okay? And then miraculously, a beard grew on him overnight. 18. That's what we say in the Haggadah, right? That's right. That's what we say in the Haggadah. I was like a 70-year-old man. He was only 18. But he looked like a 70-year-old man because of this miracle. Anyways, so he consulted with his wife, okay, to make this decision. Okay, so we listen. You have two types of marital conflict. Sometimes you have. This is the author says you have marital conflict that is solvable, and then you have perpetual problems. And the solvable problems are the ones that focus on specific subject that if you have enough thought put into it, then things can be worked out in a way where neither spouse is compromising on a certain value or an aspiration. Perpetual problems are the more difficult ones where there's a very strong underlying cause for the dispute and it's rooted in one of the person's outlook in life. Now, both of them can be dealt with. Both conflicts can be dealt with in a way that doesn't, God forbid, erode the marriage. But when you don't deal with it properly, then things can get nasty. What are some of the things that we have to look out for? Number one, harsh startup. Okay, when a conversation begins, and you know it's not going to be a good conversation. When a conversation begins with words of sarcasm, oh, you finally made it home, like something like that, right? Or criticism. That's an indicator that this couple doesn't know how to deal with conflict. And then the author says what he calls the four horsemen, the four types of reactions that usually produce and lead to a negative interaction. And these are a big predictor for breakups and divorce, if this is the way a couple normally fights. Criticism is number one, constant criticism. So a general statement that often has blame in it. 2, contempt. It's a statement that then leads to insulting. So you're now making an attack on their personality and who they are. Defensiveness is when we put a brick wall up whenever something comes your way. It's never my fault. You're the problem. It's not me. And I don't care about your problem. And what he calls stonewalling. Stonewalling is another form of defensiveness, but this is like total disengagement. I'm not even looking at my spouse. I'm not even giving her eye contact. I'm starting another conversation. I look like I don't care. I ignore. I shut down. All these things. If any of those 4 horsemen are happening, then that's a big problem. All right. Now, remember, arguments are normal. Okay. Fights are normal. Okay. No one lives a perfect marriage that every day is beautiful and bliss. But it's part of growing together. It's part of growing together. So just keep that in mind. So most problems are solvable. And as long as you understand that these things are not being chased after. Principle number 5 is how to solve your solvable problems. Now that we know that most of them are solvable, how do we do that? So, number 1, soften your startup. Okay? So instead of, oh, now you're home, right? Finally, all right? Say, you want to send a message, right? You haven't been home, right? But listen, if you can push all negativity and anger away and say, hey, how are you? How's your day? When and deep down inside you're burning, kol hakavod, that's incredible. Okay? But like, oh, it's nice to see you, right? Something like that isn't, because it's not filled with sarcasm. So soften down the tone. Number 1, learn to make and receive attempts at repair. Okay, so you can suggest and take in suggestions both ways. Soothe yourself, he says. Compromise and be tolerant with each other's faults. Compromise is actually number 6. How to overcome gridlock, because sometimes you just can't meet somewhere, right? And it's just you're at a stalemate and you don't know what the next step is. So when they seem unsolvable, that's when compromise has to come in. And that needs to be worked on to get to the heart of the matter. Because spouses, again, a good relationship knows each other's dreams and aspirations. We spoke about this at the beginning of the class. And they change the conflict from something that is impossible to resolve, something personal, to something now that they're both committed working on. And the rabbis actually took a preemptive approach to this when they said that, Ner Shabbat comes first. This is compromise. I need to buy something. Okay, what is it going to be? Well, it's going to be Ner Shabbat. Why? Because I don't want someone to trip. I don't want someone to get hurt. I don't want you to blame me why we have no money or why we have this or why you put that in this way. So I want there to be light in the home, right? And the Gemara says that even we have to be cautious when it comes to financial matters. Financial matters is often a big instigator of arguments and fights. David HaMelech says in Tehillim, Hasam gevulech shalom, chelev chitim yasbiech. He who places peace in his your borders, chelev chitim yasbiech, is a person who is sovea, a person who is satiated with food. Meaning when money is abundant, everyone's happy. Everyone's happy when there's money. When their money is tight, all of a sudden everyone's like, all tense. What's going on? Where's the business? What's happening? Start lashing out. So we understand that this is a thing, and therefore you have to try to find the compromise. Rashi tells us that one of the ways to find compromise is to be done lekav zechut. Done lekav zechut is given the benefit of the doubt. How many times do we give our spouse the benefit of the doubt? Maybe he really was working late for this whole last few days, right? You got to give him the benefit of the doubt. I know you want him there, but that's what brings avat shalom. Peaceful resolution is not done through strict judgment. because when a person focuses on justice, you can resolve disputes through peace, but then you're not going to receive proper justice. So the method to bring shalom and mishpat is through compromise. Okay, I am shalom because everyone's happy, and at the same time, we've come to a conclusion of what we need to do, and maybe that is what the Gemara meant when it said that the man should take care of this and the woman should take care of this. What man takes care of the spiritual matters, woman takes the worldly matters, or the woman takes matters of the home and the man takes matters of the outside. That's the compromise. Because when there's gridlock, then we now have a solution. Okay, the Gemara says, matter of the home, I'm not going to win this one, says husband. This is yours. And you give in. You give in because Chachamim are giving us a solution. Some say that we even learned this from the mezuzah, even though Sfaradim don't follow this mostly. But there's a machloket whether the mezuzah should be placed vertically or horizontally. And many Jews place the mezuzah on an angle to compromise both positions. That's the reason why we place it. When you see mezuzahs on an angle, especially Ashkenazim, that's why they do it, is to compromise both positions. And many Sfaradim, they keep it vertically because they follow the Sephardic psak, and they don't do the angle because doing in the angle, you don't hold like this guy or this guy, right? You're doing no opinion. But nevertheless, the Ashkenazim definitely have who to base on. Shalom Bayit means that, or doesn't mean that everything is perfect. And anyone that tells you that Shalom Bayit means I have a perfect home, they're wrong. They're mistaken. It means, Shalom means that there are conflicting views because you and I are not the same. And with those conflicting views, I find a way to live in harmony. That's Shalom Bayit. And the way to create that harmony is to find shared meaning in your life. And that's the seventh and final principle of finding shared meaning. That in order for a marriage to be more than just two people living peacefully under the same roof, it needs to be set of common goals. What are the goals? What are the objectives? What are the rituals that define you and I? And it's not just religious goals. Obviously, as a rabbi, I have to say religious goals should be at the forefront, of course. But it also relates to family rituals, family dinners, bedtimes. Baruch Hashem, I'm now in the time of year where I get to interview new prospective families to our school. And we get, one of the questions, well, it's not really a question, is that we want to know how their home looks like, with regard to how they raise their children and the religious practices in their home. We obviously need to make sure that the school is a good fit. But it's amazing to see how there's, different ways how people want to parent and different parts of Judaism that they want to focus on. And it's all valid. It's all kosher. There's not one way better than the next, but as long as the husband and the wife are together in those decisions, then they've created shared meaning. Those common goals and values are the necessary component for any successful marriage. And that says the Seforno, or the commentators in the Chumash, is that the woman was created from man for this reason, and that the man is going to leave his parents' home to find a wife, that Hashem created the woman similar enough to the man so that it's possible for him to find that woman so he can build that family. So they can work together in all of their activities and everything that they do to complete the creation as if they were one. Because you can't do it by yourself. You can't. You have to find the wife. And when you find matzah isha, matzah tov, find goodness. So this is just an overview. There's I guess we can expand on each of these things, but we're already approaching 50 minutes, so we're almost there. But there's a lot here to digest, and we went through a lot of sources, and it's always a work in progress. It's always, doesn't matter if you're a first year, an engaged couple, or a 20, 30-year marriage. There's always going to be things that are going to test your Shalom Bayit. But as long as you maintain your shared meaning and your shared goals and your work together, then you will live a harmonious relationship, and your children will see that as well, and they'll learn from that, so that one day they will have who to look up to as role models and say, my parents did it that way, therefore I can do the same. Have a great night, everybody. We'll go offline.